we have with us a panel which is a mixture of both healthcare and the workspace sector. This is so because I personally have been seeing a lot of migration and cross-pollination of design trends, approaches, processes between these two sectors. Not just the two sectors, we've obviously seen offices becoming more like hospitals, hospitals becoming more like hotels, hotels becoming more like hospitals, the other way around, and homes becoming more like offices. So there's so much cross-pollination that is happening. So this is the reason we thought we probably address this migration of trends that is happening between different industries, between different sectors, and to aid us on this, to give us insights on this particular topic, we have with us an incredible panel of speakers. We have with us Mr. Biju S.A., who heads the projects and facilities at KIMS Hospital. We have with us Mr. Indraneel Basu, who is the Managing Director for Project Management Vertical South India at Colliers. We have with us Mr. Shashidhar Sharma, the Associate Director at Cushman & Wakefield. We also have with us architect Nitin Hosbetu, who is the Design Director at IMK Architects, Mr. Mohanbir Singh, who is the founding principal at Creative Design Architects. We also have with us Mr. Architect Jayesh Ganesh, the lead design and regional head for Bangalore at Edifice Consultants. And finally, we have with us Mr. Vistas Bhagwagar, who is the principal architect at AVA Designs. This panel of speakers are someone who've come with a lot of extensive research and insights and experience in this particular industry. And with that, I am going to open this session and I'm going to put my first question across to Mr. Biju to understand what have been some of the biggest changes that have come in the design processes, design approach for hospitals, given this entire wave, since this entire pandemic has started. How has the hospitals adapted and addressed the flexibility, the functionality that is necessary in this particular scenario?
Even one of our currently commissioned facilities, KIMS East, what we have done, we just located the OPD cluster in the center with two corridors located on either side of the OPD cluster.
Okay.
So that, one can be used exclusively by the OPD patients and the other can be used for inpatients or staff or equipments or doctors. So that there will be, as you said, there are minimum, mingling of people, and we can reduce the infection.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, then again, the usual standard, what everyone follows, we have to design the reception and waiting area in such a manner to exercise social distancing. So basically all these points focus on a fact that when we design in future, architects and consultants should focus on a flexible design.
Absolutely.
Where we have to identify some specific areas, like neutral areas, like it can be a cafeteria, or it can be a library, or it can be a recreational area or a treatment room, which can be converted into an ICU or a clinical area when the situation arises. So that is the challenge in design.
Okay.
Another area, I just quickly go through my points. Another area where we could see a change was on the approach of selection of finishing materials.
Okay.
We have started preferring those materials which are more impermeable, scrubbable, and seamless in nature, like vinyl for flooring rather than tiles. And I would also give you certain examples, like for example, if you have a nursing counter with a granite on the top, on top of the counter, granite itself is a porous material. Instead, we can go for HP or high pressure laminate, or say UPVC or solid acrylic. There is plenty. I think the architects will be able to guide you in that direction.
Absolutely.
Okay. Then the thing is that for seating, we have been using sofas for the waiting lounges and reception areas. So seating can also be with a cloth fabric can be a source of infection. So we have to change. We have to change the entire cloth fabric with letherate so that it can be it is easy to clean.
Okay.
In many of the wards, what we have done, ceiling mounted medical curtains, again source of infection, was replaced with the screens. Again, washable screens are available. And then window curtains in almost all the IP rooms were replaced with vinyl stickers, either vinyl stickers or by blinds.
Okay. Okay.
So what I want meant to say that there has been a particular approach towards selection of
Absolutely.
material after this COVID
Correct.
or during this COVID process.
Correct. Correct.
I'm
Absolutely.
just coming to the major point which I have to say explain, which is
Okay.
this pandemic taught us the importance of ventilation and filtration.
Okay.
Okay,
Absolutely.
while designing a hospital, we
Hmm.
have to give utmost importance to the ventilation system there. Usually, we are following the guidelines of ASHRAE, American Society of Heating, Refrigeration,
Correct.
Air Conditioning Engineers. So
Correct.
ASHRAE has clearly depicted in its articles 170 and 62.1, I hope.
Okay.
It is clearly mentioned the guidelines to be followed for
Okay.
doing a ventilation system in a hospital. So
Okay.
ASHRAE, in general, I could say that ASHRAE prefers to go for MERV rated 7 filter for normal usual areas in a hospital, and in
Okay.
ICUs and other critical, we can go ahead with 14.
Okay.
But due to the contamination and infection issues, ASHRAE has again they just carried out an enormous tremendous studies, and they
Okay.
had come up with a addendum in September 2020 for
Okay.
addressing the post-COVID scenario, saying
Okay.
that instead of MERV 7 filter, you have to go for MERV 8 filter so as to have a better efficiency in filtration.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so most of the us while designing the hospital, we will be giving more emphasis to, of course, patient safety. Safety is there, but still the aesthetics and patient flow will be given more importance. But my request
Absolutely.
is to understand the criticality or the importance of ventilation and filtration in this field.
Okay.
Okay, and
Absolutely.
again, ASHA has come up with proper guidelines. What should be the kind of air changes that should be possible in a normal OPD or in a waiting
Correct.
area or
Correct.
a procedure room. So these
Correct.
air changes have tremendously helped us in reducing
Absolutely.
or minimizing this the so-called infection.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think
So,
out of the points which I discussed, this is the most important. And finally, one more
sure.
point. Just to want to add one more point. See, we could see a general aversion in people to coming to our
Okay.
hospital. Our hospital being a coronary care hospital, there will
Correct.
be different sorts of patients coming in. There will be COVID and non-COVID patient. So
Hmm.
generally, public has got an aversion to come to the hospital. So what?
Abs-
And there was a drastic reduction in the number of elective surgery as well as walk-in patients. OPD
Correct.
consultation.
Absolutely. Correct. Correct.
So,
Yes, that's true.
so to address this, what we have already started. What now we are focusing on setting up peripheral
Okay.
centers to do consultation, then
Okay.
diagnosis, and
Okay.
minimal level procedure, minor procedure, so that
Okay.
these patients can easily can be there, visit the facilities, get treated without much hassle.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
I think these are the major changes which we could observe in the
Okay.
hospital during the COVID period. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so much, Mr. Biju. That was extensive. The list that you touched based upon the spaces, the material, and the challenges that are faced. Mr. Nitin, Mr. Mohinder, Jayesh, any of y'all can being from now from the architectural side of addressing these issues, these points that were raised by Mr. Biju. How is the architectural fraternity addressing these changes? The flexibility that he mentioned, like different spaces were being converted into different functionalities. So that absolutely changes the operational view of how that space is. So how are this kind of flexibility, the adaptability being addressed into hospital spaces going forward? Are these even being taken into account when y'all are designing this? Any of y'all can probably go in.
I think Mr. Biju has addressed most of the points here.
Okay.
Left us with few, but I would just like want to refine on certain things. Like first thing I want to tell you is that in post-COVID, what we are seeing is that whatever were our principles of design for hospital,
Okay.
we're just
Correct.
refining it. If you see,
Okay.
if you whatever hospitals or whatever projects that we have done up till now, we
Absolutely.
mainly insisted on natural ventilation. That's
Correct.
have been our core. So
Okay.
what has happened is, and I suppose most of the people, most of the architects and designers have been doing this.
Absolutely.
Of course, there is a pressure from the client or this thing to have a doubly loaded corridor, but singly loaded corridor is a lot of sensible thing to do, where you can naturally ventilate the corridor, you can have ventilation from the window, so it just works. So for us, what we are trying to do in new projects is to emphasize on this, that every area should be naturally ventilated. So what
Okay.
happens in case if you are completely air conditioned building, and at the same time you want such kind of a situation where people, I've unfortunate reasons, I have been to a hospital, I have been to hospital recently visiting doctors, and doctors have kept their OPD door open because they don't have the windows don't open, so they
Sure,
keep their
sure.
doors open so that it's naturally ventilated, the AC is off. So if the areas are you have a regular sliding window, the doors can be kept closed, and you
Okay.
can just naturally use a natural ventilation. That
Just one question, Nitin. Just
Yeah,
since we are on this point, you mentioned naturally, given India's varying climate, being in tropical, does natural ventilation work across all? Like
yes,
I understand winters, etc. Maybe even in Delhi, but you understand the climate variation that I'm
correct,
talking about, right?
correct,
So,
correct.
is this actually feasible across all sectors or
So
across all regions?
that's where the architects come into picture, right?
Okay, okay,
So,
okay.
you that's a very very crucial point. That does it work? So definitely we
Absolutely.
have a we have a climate where, like in Mumbai, we have a humid climate. Somewhere south,
Absolutely.
it would be too hot, too dry, and all. So
Tremendously, exact.
we just, for an example, we just finished a hospital in Pune, which is a dry climate. We just doing a office in Salem near Tamil Nadu, which is a very very hot climate,
Exactly.
but we have designed the buildings, like all the architects definitely have designing and orienting the building in such a way that you get diffused light, no direct sunlight that directly comes into the structure. There's
Okay.
less of heat gain. Also, what
Okay.
like in the recently finished project of the hospital, what we have done, we have not given it a glass box. We have made it a natural, like a sliding window which can be
Okay.
openable. Now the doctors don't prefer this because
Uh-huh.
for patients,
Okay.
what
Yeah.
happens is that they suggest, no, the window should not be opened, because there is a tendency, suicidal tendencies for patients in case of
Wow.
psychological trauma. So those are factors. Like
Factor.
we
Absolutely.
have provided an open garden from the patient rooms. So
Okay. Okay.
very you can the patients can look at those gardens and feel the positive energy and all that. So
Absolutely. Okay.
such kind of natural things, open corridors, naturally ventilation definitely works. And yeah, definitely, if you orient the building in the right way, there's less of heat gain, and
Okay.
with a regular fan, you can function properly. And
Okay. Okay.
this we are saying in addition to the air conditioning system.
Okay.
If
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So this is in
this
addition
is
to
in
the.
addition to the air conditioning system, but we
Okay.
normally prefer to have it naturally ventilated. So we
Okay.
can do a study for our existing projects also,
Okay.
which we have
Okay.
done with our consultants, like a facade consultant. We did a study on how things work. Like
Okay.
you keep the entire building mass only 30% of glass, definitely the heat gain is less, the air conditioning
Absolutely.
load is less, and you don't require anything else.
Done. Done. I can
Correct,
absolutely
correct.
understand.
So apart,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
please go ahead.
So apart from this segregation of patients and doctors movement, that is what we are now insisting on. Like
Okay.
if we can provide a separate, so that's what we normally do. Is that
Okay.
in the new project that is coming across for COVID, that
Okay.
separating the doctors and the patient movement, or the relative one, so that they are in separate locations. Also
Okay.
the if in a situation where the hospital can be segregated, in the current hospital you can have a segregation, such that
Okay.
in case of even a COVID kind emergency, you have a separate lift course where
Okay.
the area gets segregated. What
Acha.
happens is, normally you have lift banks, that like all the projects have a lift bank, in which certain areas, maybe behind the lift is separately for doctors, so some for patients, but because they are all connected in one area, it just get mixed up. So
Okay. Okay.
idea is to have it completely separate, so that
Okay. Okay.
you are separating the doctors from the patient relatives or the general public, and and in case it can be just separately disconnected as a separate wing, and you
Okay.
can have corridor doors in between, so that it just gets segregated, and you can use it during emergencies like this.
Okay. Okay.
So I think others can also add
Yeah,
in, because I
yeah.
will go on
No, no,
if
no,
you want to.
definitely. I was actually hoping if Mr. Mohinder could also touch base upon. He's also done extensive work in the healthcare segment, so probably shed some, if he could shed some light that he feels what have been changes in the hospitality segment for him from his angle as such.
Actually, see now the healthcare sector has definitely undergone a transition here. And
Absolutely.
actually, let me just tell you that of late, our spectrum in healthcare designing has kind of seen healthcare designing different kind of scenarios. Let me just tell you, and then I will, because most of the our previous learned speakers have already touched upon the various parameters and things like
Sure,
that.
sure.
I will tell you how humanity, how environment, how we as healthcare professionals are reacting to something unprecedented that that we are facing.
Correct.
So now, the kind of hospital, the challenges that we are given to us now. One was a mall given to us to design as a hospital. One was a hotel given to us to design as a hospital. One was for AIMS, that was a valley somewhere which was always seen flooded. That was given to us to design. And then another in Kanpur that was a simple structure. I think it was being designed as some office mall or something like that, which was given to us design.
So these are existing structures that were handed over to you to completely transform into.
Exactly. Transform is the right word. Reappropriation, if you may. Because what exactly happening to meet the influx of the new patients in this pandemic, we simply don't have, and I'm not a manpower human resources guy, so I won't touch upon how we will staff these people. But as far as planning, design, construction aspect is concerned, we simply do not have the time to have greenfield projects coming up. I think it's a futile effort. I think where all we should focus now is people to come up and really come, and they are coming to us with all kinds of buildings. And the challenges that I'm facing, for example, let me tell you, there was this hospital, there was a hotel in Srinagar. You know, Srinagar is famous for hotels, and there were so many hotels. So
absolutely.
So there was this client who came to us and said, "This is a hotel. I designed the structure. Please design a hospital in it." So the challenges were, you know, like if you have these machines, these CT machines, X-ray machines,
absolutely correct,
different kind of loading characteristics and things like that. And then there's a structural impedance factor of 1.5, which is not there in normal buildings.
Correct.
So now we were supposed to, you know, first of all, do an analysis, then think out where all the machines could be loaded and the structure could be made stable and reappropriated into a hospital.
Okay.
We have the kind of the shafts and ventilation systems, so which has been enumerated so much in detail. So how do we go about it? These are the challenges we are facing, and I think all healthcare designers will definitely, if they are to meet the healthcare sector demands of treating the patients, and I think we should do our bit on it, is to concentrate on how we can reappropriate our buildings to provide some kind of relief to the suffering humanity, and which is a designing under uncertainties, I would say, designing some order into some chaos, you know, which is happening and which we have seen in the newspapers and all.
Correct, so, correct, absolutely.
The other was a mall. This was for Yashoda Hospital. This was in Indrapuram in Delhi. So this was a mall. So the group bought this mall and they said, please make it into a hospital. Now it's functioning, yeah. So, you know, that entrance hall was reappropriated as an entrance area, emergency was reappropriated. And then while we were going there, they said, okay, some more areas been added, please, to meet your demands of a good healthcare hospital, some more. So we were, you know, incrementally adding the segments into it. So I think now that we have honed our skills on it, but once we took up this few years back, we were not
prepared. Absolutely.
Yeah, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, having done greenfield hospitals for 30 years, now suddenly doing these kind of, see, why the necessity arose was that the greenfield hospitals were simply not able to meet the demand. So we had to go in for things like that, you know. And the other challenges that we are facing, I will slightly emphasize on this because I think the call of the day is to understand, because all the other healthcare designers will face similar situations where we have to reappropriate these buildings. The floor height is less. So what should we do? Making an operation theater requires around 10 feet of clear space, 2.5 feet of plenum above that. So, and another paraphernalia. So 14.5 feet to 15 feet is required for an OT to function with a laminate floor. Simply, the hospital buildings do require this, but office buildings and other reappropriated buildings do not have such kind of height.
Absolutely correct.
So things like that, and they do not have sunks for the areas where we want the sunks for pipes to, move around, because if there is a medically sterile area below that floor, naturally you can't get the pipes punched in and moving around. So these are the challenges that we were facing, for things like that.
Okay.
And then all designing in difficult areas like this hospital that we're doing for AIIMS Guwahati. This was an area which was inundated by water. So we had to pump lots and lots of earth there to make it, because this was an area, only area available near Guwahati where the AIIMS could be planned properly. And there was this Brahmaputra nearby. So we did a lot of landform analysis and things like that to make this hospital workable. So this is on a zone 5. So zone 5 means a lot of piles have to be driven into that area near to make it stable and things like that. So I guess these parameters, of course, are very important, which has been elucidated in detail. But I think the challenge that humanity is now facing is to provide hospitals quickly. Now, once I use the word quickly, then I will like to make a few more points here. We will also experiment with prefabrication. With prefabrication, you are able to cut down on the costs. You are able to work offsite. And people, the workmen also then are standing and working properly. There is a danger of things falling from the top because you are working there. So that is one aspect which will actually speed up the work. Then there is also some kind of a patient-focused design in terms of reappropriation and flexibility of spaces, meaning that, for example, if there's an emergency department and I have the day admissions on one side, and there is a factor saying that maybe the emergency is more in use during the evening times and admissions are happening more in the daytime. So can some space be reappropriated at appropriate times so that, the emergency can be expanded and day admissions can be expanded in the morning times and things like that. So all those flexibilities have to be built up into design, which are initially not necessary, but now it dawned upon us, and it is the healthcare designer's responsibility now to respond effectively
to these requirements.
The history doesn't say that we did not rise to the occasions.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to take one cue from this that you mentioned, Mr. Mohinder, and I'm going to go to you, Jayesh. We mentioned about building hospitals quickly, and I know Edifice built one of the quickest hospitals, and I think one of the biggest ones with Tata Trust, and that was a prefabricated structure too, if I'm not mistaken. I just wanted to understand if you could probably elaborate on that. I know this just came up. If you can just help us get insights into how that project was taken up and executed and how it was conceptualized, it would be really great as such.
So that was an exciting opportunity, and the entire process of delivering that project was exhilarating, challenging, also tiresome at times, but in the end, absolutely worth it, because from the moment we got onto the project, which was, I think, April 21st of that year or something like that, and we had promised to deliver the project before Christmas, basically. So that was give and take little around 9 months' time to deliver 6 lakh square feet. And the entire structure of the hospital was a steel structure. And, and this ties in well with what we were talking about, what Mr. Biju spoke about, was the concept of flexibility, right? And when everyone talks about flexibility, we immediately start imagining something like, I feel like rearranging my room, so I'm going to move things around. It doesn't work that way. So flexibility goes hand in hand with standardization. And only if a space or only if the components of a space is standardized during the design stage, does it allow for flexibility to take over at a future date. One of the things about this particular Tata hospital is it has 7 linear accelerators, and a linear accelerator is nothing but a huge concrete bunker which has a proton beam. So there is also it has to be in a concrete bunker because of the radiation. So typically it is so capital intensive that most cancer care centers don't have more than two.
Absolutely.
If a cancer care center has one or two linacs, it's a big cancer care center. And
Okay,
this one
okay.
has a battery of 7, not to mention all the other, nuclear medicine and the gamma ray treatment and the iodine treatment and all of those things, the entire thing. So this was a huge, huge project with very, very specific, different, and cost as well as time intensive demands. And the way we were able to execute it is by standardizing the various components, even interdepartmental, within a geometrical framework of the space that we had. Okay. So there are some things that are immovable. So when you put a concrete bunker for a linac, it's there till the next asteroid crashes, right?
Absolutely.
You can't change it. It's there forever now.
Correct.
OPD departments, your IPD departments, your rest of the entire office, when it's designed around a grid, and for that matter, even the linac is designed around that grid. So it's truly speaking geometrically interchangeable. It's like a Jenga block, the entire building. So we were then able to work very closely with the experts and the medical experts and the project team to understand where they wanted the various standardized components to go to best deliver the care that they wanted. Is it going to be on top? Is it going to be below? Is it going to be towards the periphery? Is it going to be towards the center? What do you want around the entrance? What are the adjacencies of the different department? The design process became very easy for us because we were able to synthesize through our experience and identify the standardized components. And at the end of the day, we did deliver that project in 9 months. That was
absolutely. It made headlines across, I think, not just in our industry, across all this sense. That was a pretty interesting this. Now I'll just quickly move on the next segment of the other side of the coin of this particular discussion, which is the office spaces. How office spaces are kind of have to, in fact, mimicking healthcare spaces with regards to its safety, with regards to its precautions, with regards to its wellness, and all of these things. So, Mr. Sharma, Mr. Vistas, Indranil, if y'all can probably, coming corely from office space sector, if y'all could probably give us a quick touch into how office spaces are adapting, changing to this particular environment. What are the cues that you guys have taken from this entire learnings? It would be really great. Anyone, Vistas, you want to go ahead? Sure.
So thanks, Rashmi. Pleasure being on this panel. I think we have been talking about the influence of COVID and the pandemic on office design for quite some time now. And definitely the aspect that we've not spoken about is the influence of the health sector. So I think it's a very relevant topic that you've taken up. I think primarily there have been changes in the ideology, in the physiology, the materiality, and the technology aspect of offices. And if anything, one has really started questioning that, if hospitals can do this, why can't workspaces do this? So, similar to what was mentioned by Biju, there is this entire talk of flexibility within the office workspace, which means the physiology needs to be ever evolving. You cannot have a structure that is going to be finite. Unfortunately, in our industry, we call a lot of things modular. We say modular furniture, we say modular glazing, we say modular carpets, but I've never seen anything moving once it has been set in. I think the very need of adaptability, of responding to changing demands and changing perceptions of people due to the pandemic has been challenged. And I think going forward, the most important thing, therefore, is having that ability to evolve, to have a physiology that is very, you could say, that morphs the human being in terms of being able to adjust, very liquid, being able to settle into a setting in a different manner. And I think those are the challenges that one is really talking about. Now, particularly from a hospital to a workspace, a relation, I would say there is one phrase that, covers it all. And that's really wellness and well-being.
Absolutely.
You go to hospitals to get well. You come to offices for working, and now increasingly one is beginning to talk about wellness and well-being. How
Correct.
important is that really to
Correct.
the entire debate, or the discourse of the office narrative is very well known.
Correct.
I think more and more people are beginning to ask, well, what is wellness and what is well-being? And though the lines are a little blurred and one talks about both of them simultaneously, wellness is more a physical attribute, and well-being is more a mental state of mind. And it's understanding from hospitals how you can bring that that wellness and well-being together. So, there have been, in 2013 there was something developed called the well standards.
Correct.
The well standards really talk about the kind of things that hospitals talk about, and
correct,
it's the one denominator that's therefore common between workspaces and hospitals, etc. So it talks about healthy indoor air quality, it talks about water, it talks about nourishment, talks about light, just as one of the panelists was speaking about. It talks about the importance of fitness, which is both mental and physical. It talks about comfort from an acoustic point of view, and it talks about the mind. So there are 7 criteria that allow you to have a well certified space. And I think the pandemic has led people to realize, I'm coming with a big statement, that sustainability and green building stuff is passé. It's a given. The new normal, the new standards in the future are going to be well certification. How well certified is the workspace? How closer is it in terms of performance and dynamics to what a hospital provides you?
Correct, absolutely.
By no means am I saying hospitals are the best designed spaces, with no offense to anybody who's in that segment. I feel hospitals are 20 years behind what what workspaces were from today. And I feel more and more effort needs to be given in not just the functionality of the hospitals, making them more welcoming spaces, treating them less like institutions and more as human spaces. I think there's a lot that has to be done in the hospitality domain segment, but then that's another topic for another day. Coming back to wellness and well-being, I think 5 important factors that I sort of shortlisted that's important. One is mental wellness and well-being. One is physical wellness and well-being. One is spiritual wellness and well-being. One is social wellness and well-being, and one is lifestyle wellness and well-being. These are unchangeable aspects that every architect in a new evolving workspace has to look into. As I told you in a separate chat, I've written an entire book on workspaces now.
Absolutely,
which talks about positivity at workspace, and there's a very important section that is the psychology of the workspace, and how it is important to have this sense of wellness and well-being in a workspace. And I think that is something we can learn from hospitals, and that is something that hospitals can also learn from the modern day offices that are doing that in a much better, much more congenial and friendlier manner. The cross-pollination has to be from both sides.
Absolutely.
And that's the kind of collaboration that's required trans-industry, that will make some sort of impact, and that will make some sort of a change in both the areas.
Absolutely.
I'd welcome hospital consultants to be part of the workspace domain, and I would ask hospital consultants to have the modern workspace consultants to be part of an evolving vocabulary for wellness and well-being in hospitals.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Sharma, I saw you very much agreeing in tune with what Vistas meant. You had a big smile when he spoke about cross, what do you say, exchanging thoughts and ideas between the two segments. Any thoughts on what he mentioned? He spoke about wellness being how different from well-being is, and all of these things, especially companies like Cushman and Colliers, are so integral to building the entire framework within, not only just doing the design build part or even the operations part. So what is your thoughts on this particular segment as such?
Yeah, thank you, Rashmi. Thank you very much. The smile was because I believe that 2.5 years back, myself and Vistap sir was traveling in a car, and we had a bit of the same discussion. It brought those memories back when we used to sit together in the car without the mask and discuss close to each other. That's why was for that. Having said that, I have certain ideas and thoughts about things. But before I touch upon the office space, let me just quickly, bring you. The parents noticed the elephant in the room. COVID did not bring the hospital bed crisis. Actually, COVID just highlighted it. The problem was only that the infrastructure issue was there.
Absolutely.
We were not ready with the number of hospitals in day-to-day requirement.
Correct.
So it was just that the COVID, it highlighted it because suddenly government or the municipalities didn't realize that people can get 6 sources of revenues together. So that was the issue. Second thing, as far as the design is concerned, hospital designs are quite well ahead of the time. And actually, it is improper in the sense that they're supposed to contain the virus in a particular sector, right? They're already designed for that. So there is question of virus going from one place to another does not, in my mind as a layman, should not have been there. So maybe it is the issue in terms of the execution or some kind of compromise in actually adhering to those thoughts. And one good point I noted, thanks to COVID in September 2020, Ashley has given the better filtration rate, which Biju was talking about earlier. So that's the second thing I thought, because COVID was not new. We already had this kind of challenges in next 10 years, 5 years. Bill Gates actually had said it is going to happen like this. We were just not ready with the infrastructure. So that's why the second wave becomes so bad and came close to our house.
Correct.
And designers are already doing a lot there. Has been designed and everything is there. We just have to have many numbers of beds. So that is from the health sector from my side. As far as the office is concerned, I'm in the field from office interiors for 20 plus years, and I have closely worked with, as a Hayward regional head, Hummer Miller, national head for Hummer Miller. I've been seeing the design of the offices are not changed by the CEOs and CFOs. Designs of the offices are changed by the employees, and those employees who the people like LinkedIn's and Microsoft's of the world, they want to hire. They have to go and give them what they want. And these are the people who actually brought lead into the buildings. They brought 5-course meals into the building. These are the people who designed from the cubicle forms to open office system what we have now. And so these are the people who are going to leave. And thanks to, unfortunately I'm saying this, but thanks to COVID, this young generation, the talent pool, will have this on the back of their mind, and their priority will be to have more space. And that is where it's going. Having said that, that does not mean the young generation is going to sit in the office, in the house, and work from home 24/7 to next 10 years. They are not, because there's a particular physical issue in this. There was a report or study probably done by Oxford. I forgot the study's name, but it says the lack of interpersonal face-to-face interaction creates in the mind the same kind of craving hunger does. So basically, people are going to sit and need them because it is a physical need. And that's how the humanity is involved. So people are not going to work from home. So that is done. Now, since COVID has highlighted the hygiene issue, as Vistap sir was saying that wellness is going to be there. Wellness is already there. Vistap sir knows about it. It's already there for last 5-6 years. I have been hearing about it. Before that, the lead and sustainability, everything was there. Now, the challenge is how you're going to keep the people away from each other and collaborate. And that is the challenge what designers are going to, and they're already working on it. How to give the 6 feet distance, give a collaborative space. And so I personally feel the way the organization and the office space design is going, it is going to go the technological way. So basically, as in the run of the mill, 20% of people are either out of the office or sick or taken leave. 80% of people, now it will come down to, in my opinion, it will come down to 60%. But these 60% of the people are going to demand twice the space. And that's most of the designers are working on, giving them more space to a workstation, which is not a science. So technology is going to work a lot, no touch surfaces, everything you walk into the space. But they will be demanding a lot of collaboration space, which will be away from each other. It is not going to be one-to-one, like, of course, we do need to do hi-fi, and that's all going to work, and that's all is required. But they will be the conference room are not going to be 4x4, cubicles where two people sit. It's going to be demanded, and more, of course, another sustainability aspect is the light and the ventilation. So all these things has to come together along with the work from home, 40% people working from home, and how you do. So in my thought and how we see it is that the larger office spaces are going to break into hub and spoke model. This is what we have been thinking for almost a year now. Hub and spoke, 50,000 square feet in one space and 5,000, 10,000 across the city. There is a place people can go and touch base and meet the team. There was a very interesting, I'm sorry if I'm taking more time, but there's a very interesting concept called Fisherman's Day. So what happens, the fisherman goes out to the sea, so they all get together in the morning and then they discuss, they think, wahan pe mil raha hai, machli yahan mil raha hai, and then they go out in the sea, work alone in the sea at a certain space, come back and they get together and they discuss. So this is the kind of environment I see in the future.
Collaboration that's there. Sure, definitely. Mr. Masu, coming to you, Colliers also is extensively involved in how workspaces are being molded in the country today. Just to get your insights as to how the changes are, and Mr. Sharma very well touched upon the part of how we are moving towards technology, be it technology integration, implementations for projects, or be it even operations. So how is technology influencing this influx, and how is it kind of collaborating the entire change that's happening in the sector as such?
It's a very good question, Rashmi, and I think all the speakers before me have more or less touched on various aspects, be it healthcare, and Mr. Vista very rightly mentioned that it has to be a collaboration and understanding between healthcare and office, and Mr. Shashidhar was saying it. So yes, technology actually plays a very, very important part, be it healthcare or be it offices. So healthcare, we have touched upon it, but I think whenever we are talking to some of the key healthcare operators we are working with, say Medanta or Alchemist or Hester, many of them. So technology is playing a huge part, especially like when you're talking of robotics and all these theaters. So yes, the regular operation theaters are required, but robotics is playing a major part. And because of the travel restrictions and others, some of the best doctors in other parts of the world, the Indian operators are trying to collaborate with them and bring robotics as a part of the picture and using that. Same is applying, and we are currently working with one of the very premium hospital groups, and we are talking of how we can extend the OP. IP, of course, has to be in the hospital, there is no doubt, but the OP portion, they are trying to carve out a digital initiatives, and we are working with them on how the patients need not come to the hospital. Now, of course, Nitin, Mr. Mohanbir, and Jayesh, and Mr. Biju, of course, in the beginning talked of social distancing and segregation. That's a given that has to happen. That's the way healthcare sector will evolve. But how to make sure we don't bring more people? That's the digital thing which we are working with them in the hospital space. But coming to the office space, I think it is evolving in leaps and bounds, and I think the whole aspect is trying to make buildings future proof. And that is pretty evident, and everybody has said this. And these are our panel is industry leaders who are shaping the future. Buildings have to be future-proof. Gone are the days where you used to cram people at 60 square feet per person. That day is gone. So what our designers, industry leaders, ourselves, the clients themselves, what they are now working is that how do you bring people back from their 10 feet by 10 feet homes and bring to the office? So how do you create a sense of security and sense of belonging to the home? So various points have been touched upon. One is that I think Jayesh or Nitin has mentioned that natural ventilation and external spaces. What we are doing as technology right now is, apart from the obvious engineering issues of maybe a smart AHU or EC fans or high delta T chillers or low loss transformers as efficiency, a lot of our clients whom we are working with, advising that rather than just ticking a box. So sometimes, a lot of cases, what happens in the industry is that the business becomes ticking the box. That's not something an end user wants. He wants to come and increase productivity. So he doesn't want to get into an ODC or a linear workstation and a small collapse space. We are working with designers and giving meaningful external spaces where they can sit and do meetings. This creates a lot what Vistav was mentioning in terms of well-being. And we are educating our clients to say that don't follow the tick the box concept. You will not be able to ensure employee retention. Give meaningful spaces where you can use it and bring those technological things over there, ensure a collaboration which happens on those kind of places. Apart from that, the technology is also playing a very important part in terms of how we can do things faster. And I think Mr. Mohanbir touched upon, I think, on the precast. And we are doing quite a lot in this aspect, on a couple of aspects. One is in the construction technology in terms of how we bring steel structure or precast or different type of systems, how we can build things faster. But the other aspect which is playing a huge important part is the aspect of BIM, which on an international level, and the people who are on this call with us as thought leaders, they very well, but the industry has to embrace it wholeheartedly to make things more efficient. Delivery is more efficient. What the people want, how do you resolve the conflict and calculate quantities? How do you make it doing? How do you hand it over in a more effective manner to the management team? It is not like we should build a Taj Mahal or a white elephant and give it. That's very easy, I would say, even I'm from the industry. But what is important is that giving a facility which is easy to maintain, which is operable, which is functional, which can be taken care of. I cannot give a Ferrari to somebody who doesn't know how to run it. You have lost the game day one. It has to be maintainable. People have to be able to use it, the tactile detailing of the whole thing, how people can come, how do you ensure it contactless. These are the aspects which, when people are back to work, the theory is not work and home which is there. Essence is to bring people back to work, ensure the efficiency. So how do you ensure that is by these digital initiatives? They should be able to plan it out. They should have an infrastructure. Even they are sitting out, and we are encouraging our clients that create spaces. Most of the cities, Nitin Patil actually mentioned, he hit the nail on the head, leave it to the architects, but encourage them, allow them to bring their creativity, and you will get fantastic workable spaces. And I mean it, this stuff, it is important. And a building belongs to an architect, and he will ensure that you get maximum productivity out of a building if you create meaningful spaces. And this should not be treated as jargons that sustainability. We are a planet which has evolved and only happened, the genesis, because there was sunlight. So we are attracted to sunlight. So bring sunlight into the building. Take people to the sun. I can assure you, based on the researches which is done by our in-house team and other people, productivity goes leaps and bounds if you take people closer to the sun. Hence, small office spaces, narrow office spaces. But we cannot again tick the box. You have to make them move outside. bring the technology to make them use that place. And it is not a closed room, which we term as a board as flexible workspace. Use the flexible space in conjunction with nature, and this is where some of these things come out. Remaining technologies, healthcare, as you mentioned, Biju and everybody over here have mentioned it very well. No, I don't want to repeat that. But what is also one point on the technology part is happening, and we are advising is a services continuity. Now, again, it encompasses all critical types of functions, be it office, because our highest GDP in India comes from IT office. We have to take care of the business so that we don't lose out to the world. And healthcare, because it is about saving people's lives. So absolutely. I don't want to name certain projects in the, everybody knows here in Chennai and other places, hospitals has run out, and they have totally gone out because the services were in the basement. So we are advising our clients that if you have use continuity, bring the critical services at ground level, so that at no point of time your buildings are getting into the situation. People have died like flies in places in some of the cities due to the recent floods. So these are some of these things which need to be brought in. So I just wanted to mention that other our gentlemen on the call have mentioned remaining. I don't want to sound repetitive on those aspects.
Okay. One thing I wanted to touch upon once again with the healthcare members is what Vistas brought about is the wellness and the well-being part. Like he rightly mentioned, hospitals obviously are taking care of the well-being part. But in fact, that is one of my biggest takeaways from this particular session, actually. And I just wanted to understand from, in fact, Biju, probably if you can take care of running in hospital like KIMS, and I've been inside the facility and I've seen what happens in these hospitals. Obviously, well-being is one of the biggest priority. But in this entire scenario, when he mentioned wellness is more of the state of mind, and obviously architects play a big role into how wellness is integrated into the spaces subtly. It doesn't even have to be the colors and this. But Biju, how are you all addressing this? I mean, I'm sure this must have taken a backseat given the big wave that came in. But how is this still being taken up in hospitals? Is this even being taken up? I mean, I'm sure, I don't know how this was being addressed as such.
Yeah, it is being taken care by many of the hospitals, not only in KIMS, but most of the new generation hospitals. It is already there in place. As Mr. Vistas said about well-being and wellness, he also pointed about 5 elements of well-being and wellness. So let me tell you something. So whenever we talk about the peripheral centers, the wellness centers, even we call those centers as a wellness centers, so that you won't feel that you're going to a hospital. So that is a whole concept. So the concept doesn't only rely upon the infrastructure, but it has to do a lot of things with the operation also. The approach, right from the approach of securities, right from the approach of the nursing staff, from the reception desk. And so basically this has got 2 parts. One is the infrastructure, where as I think Nitin has touched based upon the natural ventilation to a certain extent, and then the healing gardens. So healing the gardens, maybe a pot of budding buds can do a lot of can provide some enhance the status of well-being or wellness in a hospital. So one of the small steps which we did in our hospital was to avoid when you enter into a hospital, the first thing which you got stuck with is the kind of that infection, the smell, the bad odor.
Absolutely.
which you will usually catch up. So the one of the simple things which we did in our hospital was to remove those kind of lotions for cleaning purpose, so that you won't feel that you will never get that particular kind of smell. The second thing is the look and feel. So the look and feel of a hospital in the interior, the interiors, bringing in maximum natural light. Again, when we talk about the indoor air quality, suppose if it is an air-conditioned building, again, then air conditioning, the number of air changes and treated fresh air supply has got to do a lot of inputs on that. The condition is different from a naturally ventilated hospital, but
Okay.
being a critical care hospital, we may have to go for air conditioning in many areas, like in
Okay.
ICUs and operation theaters, and many of the critical areas we may have to maintain the relative humidity. So air conditioning is a must.
Okay.
So we can separate areas into two. Those areas may be some waiting areas or reception areas, or some this relative waiting lounges, which can be naturally ventilated, where we can go for we can have some landscape areas, healing
Okay.
gardens, to give us a better healing environment.
I just wanted to, Vistas had a point too. I just wanted to, Nitin mentioned about the naturally ventilated spaces, trying to keep it as naturally ventilated. Knowing Kim's facility, knowing the infrastructure as it is, would you, an operator, a person who is heading the infrastructure and facilities of an hospital chain like Kim's, would y'all kind of embrace that kind of transition, that kind of change into your spaces?
That's what, see, partly I can just go, we can
Okay.
identify certain areas. For example, if you do have an IP floor, and if you have IP floor, means inpatient rooms, if at all you can provide a courtyard in the center which can be naturally ventilated,
Okay.
that can add value. That can
Okay.
add value. But
I
never
can.
you can go for an ICU or a patient care area or
Absolutely.
critical care area. We cannot treat it as naturally ventilated, because we are talking about the infection. Then there will
Sure.
be the relative humidity and so
Sure.
many other parameters, including temperature.
Sure.
So it is I should say that it should be a combination of both,
Sure.
depending upon the
Done. Vistas also had wanted to chip in something on the point that you mentioned.
I wanted to make this, statement that, there's something called the World Happiness Report, which really talks about, how healthy countries are not happy and how happy countries are not healthy.
Okay.
True.
And I think the biggest challenge for us all, and I say all of us, whether we specialize in one domain or another, is how can we collaborate? I find this big problem that, just like the actors in the industry, you get sort of put into a slot. You're either a hero or you're a comedian or how can architects come together, or, together with the health, departments and with other people, how can we be more activists? How can we, work in areas beyond our key domain areas?
Okay.
And try and bring a happier and a healthier kind of I think that's the bottom line of this entire debate. How can happiness and health combine? And I would say we need to look no further than the hospitality industry. I mean, that's migration for you, Rashmi. I mean, the hospitality industry has evolved into wellness centers.
Absolutely. I've seen that and noted.
Fantastic. That's a fantastic wind of change that, people go for 10 days and 15 days for wellness.
To retreat. Yeah, absolutely.
That's something that both the work segment and the hospital segment can actually borrow. So
Correct,
I just wanted to throw in that angle.
Absolutely. I just wanted to understand from Mr. Singh, Mr. Jayesh and Nitin, if there was one biggest learning for you all as architects, especially in the healthcare segment, what would that be? What would that have been in this particular, any of we, I mean, I know it's already 5. I'm not going to take much of your time at all, but quickly, if you can conclude us, what has been your biggest learning in this segment as such?
Okay, Rashmi, I'll just chip in. The thing is that I think we need to reduce the load on the hospitals, and that can only happen once we have a kind of a paradigm shift in the way we treat patients.
Okay.
So can we go in for wearable hospitals? Can we enhance the telemedicine? Can we have hospitals reaching the homes? So these 3 aspects which I'm highlighting can go a long way to reduce the load in the hospital.
Absolutely. That's actually a brilliant point, Mr. Singh.
Now see that wearable hospitals, what it means is it's a small gadget you tie on your wrist or maybe put it on your neck or maybe hang it somewhere where make it a fashion statement. and it is collecting data. So all you have to do is to give that chip to somebody and all your biometrics and all are translated there, and then you get a transcription of your medical records and what the prescription, and then you go to the telemedicine. So and then whatever can be done at your home, the hospital reaches out and does it. So
Absolutely.
in fact, we've been doing a lot of study in how we can reduce the load on hospitals, have a kind of, we're developing a kind of app, which probably as a hospital designer, so that people can put in their data and it goes to the hospital and you get the treatment. So
Correct.
And I think what Mr. Basu was very rightly pointed out regarding the technology. So this technology, I just wanted to compliment him for bringing up this point, because there is like I said, a shift in the kind of design of hospitals. We're going to move in from departmentalized hospitals into cellular hospitals.
Okay.
Now, I think I might be shifting 5 years ahead in my thinking. But what cellular hospitals would actually mean is that you have a flexibility of treating multiple kind of ailments in a singular kind of arrangement, where there only the bed goes in and you got, I mean, of course, not translatable right now, but I think this is what we are moving in. And only the essential patients who do require the healthcare facility only go there. You don't go in for all cuff, you don't go in for things like that. So my summing up of it.
Okay. Nitin, you want to chip in as to what has been your biggest learning through this entire year of changes that have come through our industry?
I would say, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Okay. So I would say biggest learning, there are a couple of them. But one thing I got, it became more concrete in my mind, is the natural things, the natural light and ventilation, which I talked about earlier. I realized the importance of it. This more clearer picture in my mind, how important it is. Secondly, how important it is because I've seen how things are getting operated in the hospital. I have recently been in this 1-2 years, unfortunately, I have seen it, experienced it on a personal level. So that is one part. Secondly, I feel the technology, now my learnings would be to use the technology very well. With the management, helping the management to look at the broader perspective, like how integrated our systems can be in the hospital, so that let's say how the information of a patient can be on a pad, and everything is there, so his relative is not running around too much up and down the hospital, so the movement is lesser. Similarly, let's say a sample it needs to be taken here and there. We have pneumatic systems, but then not every management would go in for a pneumatic system. Okay, why do we need to invest into that? So now these kind of things will become more important, as that you want to reduce the footfalls all around the hospital. You want only important functions happening in the important places. So no running around, reduce the time frame, reduce the staff movement as much as possible. Like you only need to go in, look at the patient. Okay, that is important, but how important is the walks of the nurses, or going to the patient, and also how we can reduce on that part, like just having a video phone, like how in the Europe or US there are more of them. Here we need these kind of integrated systems in the hospitals, where we can use technology to reduce this interface of human to human. So like these, and also like using systems where you don't have to touch, like these sliding doors or automatic doors, or wind or lifts with some kind of sensors where you don't touch the surface. So everywhere try to utilize technology, like the AI, or even use the technology, like the doctors or the management can look at AR and all that, artificial intelligence, where robots are doing the functionality and the brain is the doctor behind it. So how we can reduce and how we can be more and more sterile in these kind of situations. Also, like the 3D printing, where these kind of new technologies will come into the medical field. So all these things can be utilized in a better way. Our approach can be in a different way altogether. Of course, about the air conditioning systems and all, as Mr. Biju said, we will not be able to completely segregate the air conditioning system. But what we were discussing with the consultant is like how you do an isolation ICU. right? So you make the entire ICU into an isolation unit where you have full fresh air exchange. So that is only in case where there's a requirement, because otherwise the AC load is going to be high. The investment in, you can't do this for the entire hospital, so it literally doubles up. Anyways, 40% of the energy is getting consumed by the HVAC. So how to balance this is where the designers will come in, the consultants, the main minds behind. I always say that it's like the consultants who, just bring everything put together, you get the product. So if the consultants are given the free hand to think and collaborate with the right people, bring in the right minds, we can really get a great product, and we can see a really progressive country ahead.
Sure. Jayesh, would you want to this? Thank you so much, Mr. Nitin, for that.
I think there are two things that I want to talk about, because the others have spoken about so many of the aspects that we have also come face to face with. I think the first thing that we have realized is, for years now we've been pushing for the concept of Acuity enabled beds, and that has primarily faced a lot of opposition because always the beds are seen from an economic perspective. What an Acuity enabled bed actually means is that your normal hospital bed can be turned into an ICU within a wink of an eye, which means that all the services that go into it, all the piping, the medical gas, all the standardization of the equipment is potentially already present in all the rooms, whether it is a ward or a double room or a single room with the necessary compartmentalization, curtains. The infrastructure is already present. So we design hospitals, many of the hospitals we've designed are upwards of 500, 600, some even 1,000 bed hospitals, but they will, a subsection of that will be ICUs, and then there'll be so many types of ICUs, right? And that what we have been pushing for is go for Acuity enabled beds. Every bed, potentially each of the 1,000 beds can become an ICU. And now we're going ahead and doing COVID retrofit for the same clients for whom we've done hospitals, where we got shot down when we said that we should look at Acuity enabled beds. So the learning for us is that, everyone talks about this as once in 100-year pandemic, right? But the amount of, destruction that it has already in this 2 years, and now potentially a third wave, some countries are already bracing for a fourth wave, is unimaginable, and a lot of it could have been avoided. I think this is one big learning for us. I think we are going to push ahead and talk more about Acuity enabled beds in our designs. The other thing that we have realized, some of us even personally, is that we just don't respect nurses enough in our country. So we always design fancy lounges for doctors and their break rooms and special parking areas. And actually the caregivers, the people who are touching, feeling, talking to, and catching the pulse of the patients are the nurses. It's very sad, but we always look at any industry with a very stratified view of the professionals who work there. And, we are pushing more and more, and this is a reverse migration. We've spoken about what offices are learning from hospitals. This is what we are pulling in from our experience of offices back into hospitals, is a more collaborative approach for healthcare professionals. Which means if a doctor is looking and preparing the case study, so there is a room behind the OPD where the nurse, the doctor, and someone from the research wing or a technician is sitting in a collaborative space. It could be a mediascape, it could be a collab room, it could be a variety of meeting rooms, it could be a seminar hall, whatever, where the collaborative learning is happening. And this is something going forward, this is something where that knowledge exchange between the different arms of the healthcare profession is what is going to create that shared learning moving forward.
Amazing.
So because you always want to invest, because the doctors are the crowd pullers. So we have a Mrs. So-and-so as the cardiologist or a Mr. So-and-so as a urologist, and people come flocking. But we have also seen hospitals which pull patients because of the brand of the hospital, not because of a doctor or a Mr. or a Mrs. So-and-so. And that's the environment we want to go to, where wellness is not under the umbrella of a personality. It's under the umbrella of what that institution can offer. And I think these are some things we are doing.
That's amazing. I'm really sorry, gentlemen. I've already taken up way over your time, but thank you so much. You have no idea. I've been just constantly making notes, and the ideas that have come out of just this single session for me, it's like I'm more like happy that I've had this. I'm just wondering when I share this with the industry how I'm going to put it across. But this is each session, each of the modules that you all spoke about had so much takeaways from it. Thank you so much. Seriously, it was great interacting with you all. Thank you, Mr. Biju. Thank you, Mr. Nitin. Mr. Thank you for bringing in that beautiful injunction between the two. And Mr. Basu, you touched upon the technological aspect of it, which is completely reinterpreting how these spaces are working. Thank you so much. Mr. Sharma, Mr. Mohanbir especially, he spoke about something that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't even prepared about the transformation of spaces, about existing structures moving as into hospitals. Thank you so much for each of that. Thank you, gentlemen. We can cut. I'll end this session here if you all permit as such. Is that all right?
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.